ice rink like this starts out as lots and lots of water. But water is a liquid. It's runny, and you couldn't skate on that, could you? So something happens to the water to make it hard enough to skate on. Do you know what that is? Liquid water turns into frozen water called ice. I've got 2 glasses, one full of liquid water, one full of frozen water. Let's look in more detail with my special camera. This is a thermal camera, and it tells us how hot or cold things are by showing us different colours. So if I point the camera at the liquid water, can you see it shows up yellow and red? And that's because the liquid water is quite warm compared to the frozen water. Look how blue that is. That's because it's ice. It's really, really cold. So what colour do you think the ice rink's going to be? Wow! Come and have a look at this. The ice rink is blue, dark blue, because it is so cold. I think it looks a little bit like an ocean. So what about my feet? Should we go for a little skate? So my feet and my legs are yellow and red because they're much warmer than the ice. But how do you freeze something as big as this? Well, the answer lies beneath the ice. Let's take a closer look. An ice rink is made of lots of layers of different materials. The first layer is made of small stones pressed tightly together to make a hard base. Next comes a deep layer of sand that has heating pipes inside. The heat stops the ground underneath the ice rink from freezing and cracking. Next, a layer of insulation keeps the warmth from the pipes down in the ground and the cold up in the ice. On top of this is a layer of concrete that has miles and miles of pipes inside. A machine, called a chiller, pumps a special liquid called glycol that does not freeze through the pipes under the rink. The special liquid is very, very cold. The concrete gets colder and colder, so that when water is put on top, it freezes and goes from runny liquid water to a solid ice rink. So we can keep skating on the ice. It doesn't just have to be cold. We also need it to be smooth. So ice rinks have special machines called ice resurfacers that repair the ice to make sure they're nice and smooth to skate on. And here comes one now. Wow, can you see how smooth the ice is after the ice resurfacer's been over it? It looks like glass, doesn't it? But how does that work? Let's look outside. Underneath the ice resurfacer is a sharp blade that shaves off a very thin top layer of the ice rink. And then these corkscrews scoop up that loose ice, and then the truck can dump all of that ice out here, and the shaved ice looks just like snow. Next, it sprays water on top of the ice. Look at the jets just here. Wow! Now that water fills the grooves that have been made by the blades on your ice skates. The water freezes, which makes the surface smooth again. So, shall we see this in action, out on the ice? Can you see the blades cutting the rough ice? Listen to that! That's the sound of the ice being shaved off the top of the ice rink. It's a little bit like a vacuum cleaner. And now look, the jets are spraying on the water. Because the concrete underneath is so cold, it only takes 10 seconds for the water to freeze and turn to ice. And with the resurfacing finished, the ice rink looks as good as new, ready for more ice skating. There are lots of types of inflatables. Small ones and big ones, and they're all filled with air. Bouncy castles are made up of lots of different parts. The bit that goes over the top is called the A-frame. This part that you walk up is called the steps. The bit you bounce on we call the bed, and then you have walls at the side and the back. And the final part is this at the back. It's called the inflation tube, and it's where the air is pumped into the bouncy castle to make sure it's soft and bouncy. To make a bouncy castle, we start in a place like this, a bouncy castle factory. All the bouncy castles made here are designed on a computer, and the exact shapes and sizes we need are stored in its memory. Bouncy castles are made from a material called PVC. That's this stuff. And for our bouncy castle today, we need 66 meters. That's almost the same length as 5 buses. The PVC is laid out on this huge table, but it's not cut with scissors. It's cut by this machine. It's called a computer numerical control cutter, or a CNC. And just here, it has a special spinning cutting tool that's actually called a pizza wheel, and it's that cuts the PVC. The computer tells the cutting machine the exact shapes and sizes that need to be cut out. It's called a pattern. Paul looks after the machine, and today he's given me special permission to press the start button. Okay, here goes. Ooh. What do you think this is going to be? This is going to be a side wall of our bouncy castle. But that all happened really fast, didn't it? So I'm going to use my special camera to help us see the cutter working in close-up. Can you see how fast the machine is moving? It's cutting 50 pieces for our bouncy castle in lots of different colours. Can you see the shapes? Look, that's a circle. The machine makes a brilliant sound, doesn't it? Now we have all 50 pieces to make the bouncy castle, but they're not quite ready to be put together yet. This is the fun part, painting. The bouncy castle design is painted onto some of the pieces, and Dean is painting different animals. This is going to be a bird. But what theme do you think this bouncy castle is going to be? Can you see the tiger, the snake, and another blue bird? It's going to be a jungle design. Now all the pieces come here to be sewn together by these two big sewing machines. The first pieces are sewn together to make the A-frame. And can you hear the sound of the sewing machine? It's like a motorbike, isn't it? Next, these pink and purple panels are going to become the bed. That's the part that you bounce on. It's very clever. The sewing machines are on tracks, so they can move the whole length of the pieces of PVC without having to lug the fabric all around. Next, the pink panels that make up the steps are sewn in place. Can you see all the tiny stitches that go through from the front to the back? They use a really strong thread to keep the pieces firmly together, ready for bouncing on. It's time for the back wall to be stitched. Do you remember all the animals? This is the inflation tube. It goes at the back of the bouncy castle, and it's where the air gets pumped in to make sure that it's bouncy. Look, all of the pieces have been sewn together. But this isn't very good for bouncing on, is it? That's because we need to put some air in it. We just need to plug in the fan and fill it up. Here goes. I I love how it's unfolding and slowly getting bigger. Oh look, there's the tiger, the snake, and the bird there, can you see? There's only one thing left to do, and that's bounce on it. Ballet shoes are made here, in a ballet shoe factory. They make 600 pairs of ballet shoes here every week. That's enough ballet shoes to fit 20 classes of children at school. Today we're making ballet shoes out of this pink material called satin. It's lovely and shiny, isn't it? Here you go.
Okay.
First, Rob cuts big squares of satin from the roll and takes them to a machine called a cutting press. Rob uses a cutting press to cut out the pieces we need to make our ballet shoes. And these just work a bit like a cookie cutter. He places a cutter on the folded fabric and then uses the press to push down, and that cuts out the pieces. What do you think it sounds like? I think it sounds like someone shutting a big metal door. Rob also cuts out a shape for the soles of the ballet shoes. That's the part you stand on. Thank you. Now let's go see all these pieces put together. There are lots of sewing machines in this factory, and each one is set up to do a different job. First, Patricia is going to fold and sew the edges to make sure they're nice and neat. It's much quicker for Patricia to sew the edges by keeping all of the pieces strung together like this. They look a bit like clothes on a washing line, don't they? But now they have to be snipped apart with scissors. Julie then sews the top and side pieces of the ballet shoes together. Can you see how quickly the sewing machine can attach the two parts? Here we go. Next, Doreen sews the backs of the ballet shoes together. That's the bit where your heel goes. This bit is called zigzagging because the stitches make a zigzag pattern. The next machine does something called backstrapping. It sews a thin piece of fabric on the outside and the inside of the heel to cover up the zigzag. The last sewing machine does two jobs at once. It's set up so that it sews a piece of material around the edge of the shoe to keep things nice and neat. But also, it threads the drawstring at the same time. The drawstring is the piece of thread that you use to tighten or loosen the shoe, a bit like laces. Wasn't that amazing? It took all of those machines, each of them set up in a special way, to make this shoe. The top part of a ballet shoe is called an upper, and now it's time to attach it to the bottom part of a ballet shoe called the sole. This plastic block is called a last, and it gives the ballet shoe its shape. First, Phil is sticking on a sticky inner sole to the last, and he's pinning it in place so that it doesn't move around. Next, Phil takes the upper and he slips it onto the last and pulls in the edges so they stick to that inner sole. To make sure the sides are fully stuck down, Phil just bashes it with a hammer. And now, this is my favourite bit. Phil's using some pincers to gather the fabric at the toe of the shoe into neat little lines that we call pleats. There are 6 pleats on each side of the shoe. And then he cuts off the excess fabric with a knife. The last thing we need to do is stick on that outer sole, which already has glue on it. A quick check, and it's ready to go. Wow, Phil works so fast. He can make around 200 shoes a day. Last thing to do is sew the soles on the ballet shoes so they're strong enough to dance in. Thank you. Look, a finished pair of ballet shoes. Don't they look great? There are lots of different types of swings, but they all have the same basic parts. A strong frame called an A-frame because it looks like a capital A. Can you see? And stretching across the top of the frame is a long pole, and on the pole there are some brackets. The brackets are those metal loops that attach these two chains to the frame. Do you know what's on the end of the chains? That's right, it's a seat to sit on. And if you get someone to give you a push, then you start to swing. This is my friend Jess. She's going to give me a push. But what happens when the person pushing you stops? Thanks, Jess. You start to slow down. So if you want to keep on swinging, you have to use your legs like this. You push them forward and draw them up and underneath you. And you start to swing again. It's great, isn't it? But how does a swing keep on moving so we keep on swinging? I think we need to take a closer look. When we first sit on the swing, our body is in a sitting position, just like when we sit on a chair, and the swing is flat. When we push off and start to swing, we have to change the shape of our body to keep the swing moving. When we get to the front part of our swinging, we lean forward and push our legs backwards. Moving our body like this means we're turning the position of the swing in the opposite direction, and that helps push us back the other way. Then, when the swing reaches the back, we lean our body back and we push our legs out. This turns the swing in the other direction. Moving our body like this at the front, then the back, then the front, then the back, puts energy into our swinging motions and means we can keep on swinging and swinging. That was brilliant, wasn't it? What should we play on next? Let's try the slide. I love sliding down slides. Do you? Whee! There are lots of different types of slide, but they all have two main parts. Some steps with handles to help you get to the top safely. And then there's the main part that you slide down, which is always an angle like this. Do you know what helps us slide down a slide? Let's find out using this ball. When you let go of something, it falls to the ground. And that's because of a force called gravity. And gravity pulls everything on Earth downwards, even us. So if we jump in the air, we come back down to the ground too. Because the top of the slide is higher than the bottom of the slide, gravity helps us to slide down to the bottom, just like this ball. How quickly we go down the slide depends on something called friction. And friction is created when two surfaces rub together. Different types of material create different amounts of friction. It's why some things slide easily and others grip. This towel is made of cotton, and cotton slips over things easily. Watch this. Whee! That was really fast. That's because the cotton towel and the metal slide are both slippy materials, so there isn't much friction. But some materials create more friction. These are harder to move against, like a rubber mat, or these rubber wellies. I'm going to attach my special camera to my wellies so we can see what happens when I go down the slide. There we go. Okay, are you ready? Let's go. I'm not going very fast, am I? Can you hear the sound of the rubber against the metal? Well, that wasn't such a smooth slide, was it? Did you see that my rubber wellies were creating a lot of friction so that I didn't slide down so smoothly? Look at all of these kites in different shapes and sizes. Like this one here. It looks like a beautiful bird, doesn't it? This kite is a type of diamond shape that we call a rhomboid. But I think my favourite is this one just here. For a kite to fly in the air, it has to be very light. And this kite is made of a material called nylon. And nylon is really strong, but very thin. Now, can you see this piece here that goes from the top all the way to the bottom of the kite? That's called the kite's spine. And if I turn it over, we can see this piece that goes across the kite. And that's called the cross spar. But attached to the spine, we have this piece of string that we call the kite line. And it's what we hold on to when we fly the kite in the air. When we fly kites, we have to make sure that the area is big and it's free from any trees, roads or power lines. This one is just right. Ready, guys? 3, 2, 1, up! Wow!
Can you hear the sound of the kites flapping in the wind?
To fly a kite safely, we need to make sure the wind's not too strong or too light. So to find out how strong the wind is today, I'm going to use this very special machine, and it's called an anemometer. The anemometer spins round, and it's telling me that the wind speed today is around 10 miles per hour, and I think that will do just right. The best way to launch a kite is with 2 people, and Bill is a kite flying expert. He's going to help me launch the kite by holding on to it whilst I roll out the kite line. You ready, Bill?
Yep.
Okay. Now I need to stand with my back to the wind, pull on the kite line. Bill is lifting the kite up. Here goes. There it goes! We're flying a kite!
To get the kite higher, I can let out the kite line a little bit at a time.
Wow, it looks absolutely beautiful up there. But how does a kite fly in the sky? To find out, I'm going to film Bill flying this kite with my special camera. This is my special slow motion camera, and it helps me to see things slowed right down. Can you see the kite catching the wind and lifting up into the air?
The curved shape of the kite and the way it tilts as it flies means that air moves over the top of it faster than the air moving underneath. This creates lift, pushing the kite up into the sky. The stronger the wind, the more lift there will be. We can also feel the wind trying to blow the kite away. This creates something called drag.
To stop the kite just blowing away, we pull on the kite line, and this creates something called thrust. But for the kite to fly perfectly, we need the thrust, that's the pulling on the kite line, and the drag, that's the force of the wind, to be the same.
Let's see if I can fly the kite to show you those forces working in the air.
Now the kite is in the air, the thrust of me pulling on the kite line and the drag of the wind pushing the kite away balance each other out. And that's what keeps the kite flying perfectly in the air. And now I can just stand back and enjoy it. I loved seeing how a kite works. What was your favourite bit?
Do you remember what you call the string that's attached to the kite? That's right, it's called the kite line. Did you hear the sound of the kites flapping in the wind? And did you see the way the wind caught our kite and it lifted into the air?